Shalom and welcome to this very important teaching. The reality of vowels in the ancient Hebrew. A deeper look into the language of Yahuwah. In this teaching presentation, we're going to uncover the truth about vowels in the original Hebrew, the original Ivriyt language, the ancient covenant language of scriptures. There is much confusion today and deception, with some even claiming that the Hebrew has no vowels, or that the name of Yahu'ah cannot be spoken. These are false, very false ideas, rooted in ignorance of both history and language. We will examine what the ancient texts truly reveal and why understanding this matters greatly for those who are seeking to walk in covenant truth. Restoring the pure language of Yahuwah is part of restoring his name, his covenant, and his word in these last days. So let's begin this journey and take a deeper look into the language of Yahuwah and the language of the scriptures. Many today are genuinely confused and in some cases deliberately misled or intentionally misled on this issue of the vowels in the Hebrew language. Some boldly claim that Hebrew has no vowels, that its language is a language of only consonant, and from this false claim, entire doctrines have been built to justify hiding the true pronunciation of Yahuwah's name. But the truth is this: the vowel points, called the Nakud, were a later addition by the Masoretes centuries after the original language and scriptures were written and spoken. These points were added to clarify pronunciation, not to create vowels. The vowel sounds themselves had always existed, faithfully passed down through the oral traditions from the earliest generation. The ancient Hebrew, Ivriyt language was a living spoken language, and like every spoken language on earth, it required vowels to be intelligible and clear. This point is not up for debate. It is a linguistic fact. In this teaching, we're going to back to the ancient root, stripping away the confusion and restoring the true understanding of how the language of Yahuwah was spoken and why that matters for us today. It is important to step back for just a moment and understand what exactly is a vowel. And when I was preparing this, I had to do that. What is a vowel? What's its purpose? How does it work? Linguistically, a vowel is a sound made with open, unrestricted airflow through the vocal tract. A pure tone shaped by the position of the mouth and the throat. A consonant, by contrast, restricts the airflow by the tongue, lips, or throat, creating a different kind of sound. Every spoken language on earth, from the most ancient to the most modern, requires vowels to form intelligible words. Without vowels, speech would collapse into unpronounceable broken fragments. No human language has ever functioned without vowels. So to say that the Hebrew is a consonant-only language is from someone who does not understand language and linguistics. The ancient Ivriyt, the language of the patriarchs, the prophets, and the scriptures, was no exception to this. It was a vibrant, living language spoken by the people of Yahuwah, and it used vowels in its speech long before the scribes added the written points to record them. So how were vowel sounds conveyed in the ancient Hebrew before the Masoretes added the Nikud points? Hebrew had its own built-in system embedded in the very letters of the language itself. Certain letters, called transliterations, acted as vowel indicators. When written, these included the aleph, a guttural stop or vowel carrier, the hey, often carrying an ah or eh sound, the vav carrying the u or long u sound, or the o or long o sound, the yod carrying the I or the E sound. These letters combined with the oral tradition, ensuring that the vowel sounds were fully understood and preserved, generation after generation. The later scribal Nikud system was created to record the pronunciation more precisely in writing, especially as Hebrew became less commonly spoken after the exile. But understand this, the Nikud did not create the vowels. It simply recorded what was already being spoken. The ancient Ivriyt was a living vocal language, and its vowel system was part of its Elohim-given structure from the very beginning. Before the Nikud, Hebrew used its own system, matrix, lectonis, aleph, hey, vav, yod. They carried vowel sounds. The vowel points were a later scribal addition, a tool, but it was not part of the original. When we look at most of the ancient Hebrew texts, the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Gezer calendar, the Silver Scrolls, the Siloam inscription, we find something striking. There are no vowel points present. If you even look at a Torah scroll today, there are no vowel points in those scrolls. And yet, these texts were fully understood by the faithful. The words, including the sacred name of Yahu'ah, was spoken clearly and correctly by those who preserved them. Why? Because the vowel sounds were not missing. They were alive in a spoken language preserved through the oral traditions of those who guard the covenant. The written text was never meant to replace the living voice of the people of Yahu'ah. They knew how to pronounce the words because the language was still spoken and taught from generation to generation. The Dead Sea Scrolls and these other inscriptions prove beyond debate ancient Hebrew was a full living language with vowel sounds understood and used long before the later Nikud system was ever devised. Looking deeper at the most sacred name in all of Scripture, the Tetragrammation, the Yod Heh Vav Heh, this is the name given by Yahuwah himself, revealed to Moshe, the name spoken by the patriarchs, the name written in the ancient scrolls. In the Paleo-Hebrew, the name is written Yod Heh Vav Heh. Each letter in the Paleo-Hebrew is not just a sound. It is also a picture. And that picture brings prophetic meaning to the word. The Yod, the arm, the hand, the work, the action, what is done, to send, to go, to throw. The Hey, breath, behold, revelation, that which is revealed. The Vav is the nail, the hook, the connection, that which binds or secures. And again, the He, breath, behold, the revelation. And when we combine these full word picture meanings together, these letters, they proclaim, behold the hand, behold the nail. Another way that you can look at it, the work of the hand of Yahuwah revealed the connection, the covenant revealed. And a third way that we can understand it, the breath and hand of the eternal revealed through the nail, bringing covenant and redemption. This is not accidental. The ancient Hebrew language, the language of Yahuwah himself, declares the redemptive work of Yahusha, even in the very letters of his name. As we trace the history of the Hebraic language, the Ivriyt language, and it spreads across the ancient world, we see an important fact. When the scriptures were translated into the Greek and Latin, the vowel sounds were never lost. The Greek and Latin both require the use of written vowels in their alphabets. They could not write Hebrew words without knowing the vowel sounds. This proves without question that the vowel sounds of the ancient Hebrew were fully known and preserved at that time. We can clearly see this in the name Yeshayahu, Isaiah, written in the Greek as Isa, Yerushalayim, Jerusalem, written in the Greek as Jerusalem, and Yehuda, Judah, written as Eothios or Eothios. These are not guesses. These are historical transliterations that confirm the vowel sounds were actively known, used, and preserved. The argument that Hebrew has no vowels quickly collapses in the face of this evidence. The ancient translators had to know those vowels. Otherwise, these transliterations would not be possible. This historical record gives us great confidence that the true pronunciation of including the sacred name of Yahuwah was never lost, only obscured by later man-made traditions. One of the major shifts in the Hebrew language came during and after the Babylonian exile. During captivity, the people of Yahuwah were exposed to Aramaic, the dominant language of the empire. Over time, the written Hebrew script was influenced, and what had been Paleo-Hebrew gradually shifted into what is now called the Aramaic square script. Some people call this the Babylonian script, that the modern Hebrew block letters are made from today. But this shift in the script did not change the spoken language, nor did it erase the vowel sounds that were already embedded in the living speech of the people. Centuries later, in the 8th to the 10th centuries CE, the Masoretes, a group of scribes and scholars, developed the system of Nechud. It is absolutely critical to understand the Masoretes did not invent the vowels. They recorded the sounds that were already present to preserve the correct pronunciation, especially as the Hebrew became less commonly spoken and fewer people knew how to pronounce the words properly. Their work was scribal preservation not a new creation. The vowels had been present, living in the oral tradition from the beginning. The argument that vowels were added later is a distortion of the truth. Only the written symbols were added later. The sounds themselves were already well established. This is why restoring the understanding of the ancient Ivriyt is so important. To separate truth from errors and misunderstandings that have crept in through history. So why does this matter so much? Because the sacred name of Yahuwah was never meant to be hidden or silenced or stripped of its spoken power. It was never meant to be veiled behind empty titles or generic substitutions. The false claim that Hebrew has no vowels has been used to justify this hiding of the name and to keep people of Yahuwah from calling upon the name, his name, in truth. But the reality is clear. Ivriyt, Hebrew, has always contained vowel sounds. The language was living, spoken, and intelligible. And Yahuwah's name was always declared. Zephaniah 3:9 tells us, "For then I will restore to the people a pure language, that they may call upon the name of Yahuwah to serve him with one accord." This is a prophetic promise, and it is being fulfilled in our day, in our time. The pure language of the covenant people is being restored, and with it, the true understanding of Yahuwah's name and his word. By recovering the reality of vowels in ancient Ivriyt, we are helping to restore the integrity of the scriptures, the clarity of the covenant, the boldness of the remnant in this final hour. This is not just about language, it is about covenant identity. It is about preparing a pure bride who will call upon the name, will call upon the true name of her Redeemer, her bridegroom. So what we have seen, what we have learned here, is that ancient Ivriyt, the Hebrew language, has always had spoken vowels. The matrix lectonis, those letters that served as vowel indicators, were in use long before the Nuquid system was added. And most ancient texts, from the Dead Sea Scrolls to the Gezer calendar to the Siloam inscription, confirm that the oral vowel tradition was alive and well and faithfully preserved. The Nuquid points of the Masoretes were a later addition created to help preserve pronunciation, as fewer people spoke Ivriyt fluently and didn't read it often. But they did not create these vowels. They merely recorded what had always been spoken. And why does this matter today? Because restoring the original pronunciation of the language of Yahuwah is not a trivial academic exercise. It is a prophetic act, part of the greater restoration of his covenant and his people in these last days. It is an important part of the fulfillment of Zephaniah 3:9, the restoration of a pure tongue, a pure language, so that we may call upon Yahuwah by his true name. As the remnant awakens, We are called to cast off the lies, the confusion, the traditions of men, and return to the pure ancient paths. This includes restoring the understanding of the very language Yahuwah gave us, so that His name, His Torah, His truth, His covenant will once again be heard clearly in all the earth. May we be part of that restoration. May we honor His name and His word, and may we prepare ourselves in our hearts, in our minds, and in our speech for the coming of the King. Thank you for choosing Ephraim's Cry Academy and for choosing to study the Word from a Hebraic mindset. You are about to embark on a life-changing journey through the studies of the ancient paths and the Hebraic understanding. A journey of truth, transformation, and covenant restoration. As you study, may Yahuwah bless you, open your eyes and understanding, and lead you into the deeper truth of His word and His ways. Remember to study, learn, apply, grow, and share as you go about this task. And as we begin to journey together, as we learn to walk as Messiah walked.